TGI, it is Friday. It's been a great week, although today was the final day of the 6 weeks grading period, so I can't believe the first 6 weeks already has gone by so quickly. However, I want to talk about the station activities that we did all week, at least for my B-Day classes, and then my A classes will wrap up next week. And so I'm going to turn the camera around. And so first, before I walk around, so this is the student station sheet, matter and change, and I did this last year. The only maybe difference was towards the middle of the fall semester, I added this little completion check, so that way before the students moved around from station to station, they had to clean up everything. Then they had to come back to see me because I was stationed back there, and I'll talk about that shortly. And I would ask them a question or two to make sure that they were actively engaged and they were paying attention before I stamped off. Once they got stamped off, they would go to the whiteboard, and it's covered because I have a whole bunch of student names. But I had all the stations listed on the whiteboard, and so then they just wrote their names so that way they can keep track, but mostly this was for me because last year, I didn't, even though I would only know when students were done or how far along they were, only when I walked around and I like grabbed their sheet and I looked at it front to back. But I had no way of just like standing around the classroom and looking to see who was done and where they were at. So this year I have them writing their names on the board so I can take a quick glance to see who has their name on there multiple times and who has their name like maybe 1 or 2 times. So I felt like this worked. It says start and end time. For some students, they were keeping track. Originally, I was going to do this, start and end time, just to kind of see like if a student came to me and I noticed that it took them like 45 minutes to do the reading station, and I know that they're really strong at reading, then we're going to have a talk. It's like, what are you doing? However, this year what I did is I took the signs and I'm hanging them from the ceiling. They all have main station directions, and then they have like the learning target, because again, this year I'm doing standards-based grading, so I took the standards and I broke them down. Some of them have 2 learning targets, etc. Each of the stations also have 4 of everything. So last year I started out with duplicate sets, and I had like a set back in the lab. I had like all the stations back there. One particular station, for example, like the organization station was back there, and then I had one up here, along with the other different stations. Towards the middle of fall semester, what I did is I made 4 sets, and I had 2 of the same, like for example, 2 organization stations back there, 2 up here. This year what I decided to do is just put them all in one area. So there's 4 here, and then 4 of all the materials that they need. And so only 4 students can be at any given station at a particular time. So 4 students there, 4 students there, 4 here, 4 there, 4, even with the labs. So they have all the materials. We have the technology station. They all have Chromebooks because we're a one-to-one campus this year, whereas fall semester last year, I had a cow, so I had to rely on that. But again, they have all the materials at their table. The main difference this year was instead of doing 1 lab with the station, and it was a very easy lab, I am doing 4. There's a station right there, 1 lab. There's another lab, density. There's a white powder lab. This is can they separate a mixture lab, and that one is the chemical changes lab. And again, I apologize. My room is a mess because it's the end of the 6 weeks and there was all this stuff going on, and my student teacher's also learning how to do all these things, so it is what it is. So I have 4 of all the station materials. The students can work individually, or if they wanted to, they can work together as a team. However, every single student had to do the experiment. And so I made sure that it was microscale, so that way I wasn't using a whole bunch of chemicals, and I gave and the students were really great because one of our process standards is like the conservation of materials and resources. And so I'm using that as part of the standards-based grading. And I told students like, hey, you want to make sure that you're mindful of the use of materials. Also demonstrating safe lab practices. So like wearing goggles, that was another thing that I made sure that, hey, your goggles need to be on at all times. So I didn't have issues with like the students taking their goggles off and putting them on their heads or leaving them on the table, because I told them about, you know, the warning. Goggles must be worn at the station at all times, and it just kind of tells them kind of what it would be. And then this station was the end of grading period one-on-one station conference. Sorry, like my periodic table is covered up and the other one's taken down and all that stuff is removed because we also had an assessment over that. So this is where I called the students back, and here's like all my junk back here, like all their stuff, where like I went over their grades with them. I also had them fill out, I probably can't show, well maybe hold on. Let me see if I can get one. Yeah, I can. So I wanted to do academic habits, calling college and career readiness skills, and it's a thing. It's not for a grade, but I scale them 1 through 4, 4 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, and it goes over things like attendance, punctuality, timeliness, etc. I had the students fill one, do a self-reflection and fill one out. And then I made one online through a Google form that I'm going to fill out based on, what I thought. And then I'm going to type it up and send it to them electronically. And in one of the videos, I talked about Autocrat. So I created something like that. So once I hit submit, it's going to send an email to the student. And then I get a PDF file that I can use to share with parents. I can share with their coaches. And I type in also what like the students put on their self-reflection. Along with what I scored. So that conferencing piece is something that I'm working on. It started really slow on day 1 when I started this on day 1, but then I got better by day 3 because I realized, hey, I'm gonna have the students assess themselves versus like having them come sit next to me and then trying to fill it out all together. I figured they can fill it out first and then I can just show them what I had and get them in within, each student within 5 minutes, because I was going over 5 minutes with I was going over 10 minutes with, like one student at one point, and it just wasn't good. But, the students, for the most part, many students got through a majority of the stations. I just told students any station they didn't finish, they're gonna have to come in on their own time. My B-Day classes are lucky because my A-Day classes, they still have until next Wednesday to do this, so that all the sets will be out. With that said, they're going to get my B-Day classes, they're going to review for their test. So it's going to be like another station setup thing where they can pick and choose how they want to review. And then they take their test and then we're moving on to the next topic. I'm going to grab my stuff here and I'm going to get ready to go home because I'm tired and I need some rest. Do me a favor, if there was anything about this video that you liked, then make sure to hit that like button, comment down below, and or share the video. If you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe so that way you can bond with James. As always, thanks for watching. Bye.